Thank you, Mark. And thanks, Jackie, for that beautiful music, and Sean for giving us the lyrics. It's all part of how we celebrate when we come together on Sundays and do our best to live the truth that we're reminded of in every moment of our week as we go forth into it. I'm happy to say that today's message is largely inspired by the Bhagavad Gita, as well as these passages from Holy Scripture, which I would like to open with. The first one is from Psalm 25, verse 5, which is really an invocation to Spirit to show me thy way. O Lord, teach me thy path. Lead me in thy truth and teach me, for thou art the God of my salvation, and on thee do I wait all the day. Psalm 25:5 reminds me that I must ask to be led in truth, capital T, truth. The other scripture that moved me this week comes from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 14 to 16. Ephesians 4, verses 14 through 16. That we henceforth would no more be children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, but speaking the truth in love, that we might grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ, making increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. We celebrate July. This is a new month and a new day. And in unity, traditionally, as many of you know, the power from among the 12 powers that we particularly focus on this month is the power of spiritual understanding. And so it has been my goal this week to understand more deeply that each one of us is a messenger of truth, to recognize, realize, and to accept that I have my own message that I'm constantly expressing. And so during the month of July in unity, we seek to understand ourselves better as expressors or as messengers of God. One of my favorite, if not my favorite color, is associated with this spiritual power of understanding, and that is creamy yellow, or rendered by some as gold, the color gold. And for me, the power of understanding has always resided in my feet, because my feet are what stand under me, and the message that I'm constantly expressing in the world is guided by and given through the power of spiritual understanding in me. I notice how Jackie's selection of A Perfect Heart, as always, harmonizes through its lyrics about freedom, about love, about joy, and about power, harmonizes with the message which I'm humbled, privileged, and joyful to share with you, that has come through for me and that I'm sharing with you this morning. In thinking about the fact that we are all messengers of truth, somehow I was reminded about a professor that I had in my graduate work that perhaps many of you will recognize. He just happened to be in Toronto the year that I was there, and mercifully died soon after, and his name is Marshall McLuhan. And Marshall McLuhan was a kind of prophet, in my mind, about the media and about where the messages and the media would take us. I did not know, actually, that McLuhan was at the University of Windsor, probably because it was before I was born and only for 2 years, from 1944 to 1946. You will recognize, I believe, the relevance between one of his most famous quotes, teachings, and the message that I'm sharing today. It was McLuhan who first said that the medium is the message. Wow, what a responsibility I hear in that, because that means I am the medium through which the message of a perfect heart, the message of truth, the message of love emanates. And so from time to time, perhaps you take inventory, as I do, about being a messenger, because each one of us is a messenger of capital T truth. And of course, this requires an inventory of how my understanding of truth is expanding. What do I say truth is? And also for me, it has been an ongoing process the last 2+ decades in taking responsibility for owning the message that I am expressing, not just on Sunday morning, not just in spiritual groups, but when I take a fall in the middle of the market and fall flat on my butt, which I did yesterday morning, and it was really refreshing to have 4 or 5 people come and make sure that I was okay. And so I don't interrupt the message of truth that I am a medium of, because I've fallen flat in the middle of the market, and I don't interrupt it for any other call from the world of impermanence. So let's go through this together, this business of owning the fact that each one of us is a messenger of truth. So I am a messenger of truth, whether I am sitting on a sidewalk curb, as I was on Monday night, watching the international fireworks. I was grateful to have an invitation to go actually up to a hotel room that looks out on the river. And so in my perception, I had envisioned watching them from the hotel room. Here's the thing. There was a 9-year-old with us, Alex, my brother's newly acquired little guy. And he said, oh no, we're not staying up here. We're going right down in the street. We're going to sit on the curb and watch the fireworks. And so I think Alex may have given me the title of a poem, or perhaps a book, when I get around to doing that, because as the crescendo and the momentum and the sound and the colors increased of the firework display, I found myself shedding tears of pure absolute joy and wonder and awe. So he put his little arm around me and he said, are you okay? And I said, oh, Alex, I'm better than okay. He said, well, then why are you crying? And I said, I'm crying because it's just so beautiful. And what he said next was, so tears can come from beauty. And I said, oh, yes, tears can come from beauty. And in that moment, perhaps the message that I'm sharing with you this morning forged itself in my mind and my heart, as I recognize that the message that I'm always sending out into the world for me is to rest in an awareness that I am love in expression. And if that's my message, that I am love in expression, and if I hold that not just as a credo, meaning I believe that I am love in expression, but folks, that I take responsibility for it, that I own that message. If I really own the message, then I am consistent with its expressing through me as its medium. Because, as McLuhan very aptly pointed out, the medium and the message become one. And so we ask ourselves today, inspired by the man who, by the way, predicted in 1964, holy mackerel, what's that, almost 60 years, McLuhan predicted the end of print culture and the use of electronic interdependence, the idea that the use of interdependent electronics would become the reality of perhaps not his time on earth, but that it was imminent. And of course, he was absolutely accurate in that. I just think about once again, spiritual responsibility that I accept for owning the message, for understanding and believing my message, but above all, living the message that I am an expression of pure love from a heart which I keep as perfectly pure as possible, whether I'm splayed out in the middle of the market floor or sitting on the sidewalk when I could not resist turning to the gentleman who was probably a foot away from him with a twinkle in my eye. And I said, "So much for social distancing, huh?" And he just burst out laughing. And being present to the ironies of life for me is a way that I become and maintain my message. I own my message of being an expression of love to the best of my ability. And so thank you, Dr. McLuhan, for reminding me that I am the message because I am the medium through which God is always expressing. The qualities of a medium have as much effect, essentially, is what McLuhan was teaching, that the qualities of the medium have as much effect as the content of the information being transmitted. I did not find him a very exciting lecturer, and I'm sure that he was a very steady, serene, not excitable presence. And so before I launch into what really inspired me this week, which is Edwin Arnold's translation of part of the dialogue that is the Bhagavad Gita, I would like to just share with you, as I often do for myself when receiving a unity message, the fact that it is applicable, the fact that it is practical, the fact that when we go away from Zoom this morning, we can take fuller responsibility for owning our message. We, and I do, accept complete responsibility for how consistently I express that message. How easily am I pulled away from it by anything seductive in the outer realm? And so before I can fully own what my message of truth is, these are the 3 steps that I will often take inventory with. In looking at owning my message, the first thing I need to do is to be able to articulate what is the message that I am a medium for expressing. Very simply, I need to be able to articulate it in few words. So perhaps your own message of truth that you most consistently show up with, whether you're with yourself or others, comes to mind. And it's a great question. What is the message of truth that I am owning? And how can I articulate it in few words? I am a messenger of pure love. Do I believe it is the second step, because without faith, the articulation of it will be quite empty. Do I believe in my own potential to have a cleansed, purified heart that can express that love, which is eternal, unchanging, which is one definition of the truth? So first, I need to find the words that capture my message. Then I need to believe that I am that message. And finally, I must consciously commit to being a consistent expression of it. So articulation, belief, and commitment to it in a way that is consistent. You've probably noticed, I know I have, that my central message, which I consciously decide to be a medium of, has nuances. It has shades. Some mornings when I wake up, it shows up as, wow, my message of truth is that I am lighthearted. I am lighthearted. Well, isn't that a facet of divine love, of perfect love? And so I brought myself to a list, a guideline for ascertaining the degree to which my heart is pure, so that I might show up in my life with my message and own it. Own that message of being a vehicle, a medium of divine love, of perfect love, of pure heart. In this dialogue of the Bhagavad Gita that takes place between a young prince, Arjuna, and Krishna, who is an avatar of the Hindu deity Vishnu, they participate in this dialogue, and it becomes really, this Sanskrit epic poem becomes a very influential religious text in Hinduism. What we do know about it is that it was likely written in the 1st or 2nd century of the Common Era. And perhaps you, like me, will be astounded at the resonance, the application, and the veracity that this list of things contains for 21st century life. And so in conversing with the young prince, and I just would like to give credit, as I said in my introduction, to Sir Edwin Arnold, whose translation I used of the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, this is again now the avatar who says to the young prince, "Here are the signs by which a lover of truth is unmistakably noticed." So he gives the young prince a list of signs. I'm going to go through all of them once, and then, if one of them particularly speaks to you, I will share with you which of those I'm still working on. And so again, in the translation, truth is defined. And of course, if I'm going to call myself a messenger of truth, I better understand what I mean when I say capital T, truth. Well, truth is that which is unchangeable, that which is pure, holy, that does not rely on anyone's agreement with. It simply is holy and arises in every aspiring heart. I'm not surprised that the teacher gives 15 signs. That always speaks to me because metaphysically 15 is a number of healing. And so I've reminded myself all week of the timeliness of this message from this ancient Sanskrit poem. The timeliness of it, describing a lover of truth, is recognizable by these 15 signs. Ready? Number 1, a lover of truth is fearless. Number 2, a lover of truth expresses singleness of the soul. A lover of truth is always willing to strive for wisdom. Number 4, a lover of truth always has an open hand and a governance of appetites. Number 5, piety. Number 6, uprightness. Number 7, a lover of truth also loves lonely study. A love of lonely studying. Number 8, characterized by a tenderness towards all that might suffer, all that are suffering. A lover of truth is always slow to wrath. A lover of truth heeds injuring nothing that lives. So a lover of truth pays attention and makes sure not to injure any living thing. Number 11, a lover of truth is known by the ability to express only charity and to observe no faults in others. Maybe I better say that one over again for myself. The lover of truth exudes only charity and can spy no fault in others. Number 12, a lover of truth lives from a contented heart, a happy heart, if you will, a contented heart that is fettered by no desires, none. Number 13, a lover of truth has equanimity, which I read as balance. A lover of truth has a bearing that is mild, modest, patient, pure, and full of fortitude. And finally, a lover of truth has an unrevengeful spirit. So let me go back to the dance that we do as humans on planet Earth as we seek to fulfill this goal of being messengers of truth and of owning the consistent message that we express. The first quality mentioned in this poem is fearlessness. My friend who died on the first day of summer, my Unity mother, exuded fearlessness. And even though I'm told by those who were close to her in the last few months that she had considerable confusion, she continued to say, I thank God that I'm playing with a full deck. She was fearless. She did not go gently into that good night. And so that fearlessness came to mind for me in a new way this week. The idea of loving lonely study is the second one that spoke to me, because I have always loved studying alone, much to the despair of my mother, who some of you know was is a gourmet cook and taught cooking. And she just was desperate about the fact that I could not get my nose out of a book long enough to learn how to cook. So a lover of truth is known by their fearlessness, by their love of lonely study. And the third one deals with something, the third one that I'm extrapolating from this list of 15. And you're certainly welcome to email me, and I'm happy to share all 15 with you. The third one that, of course, speaks to me in my life journey, particularly in the last few weeks, is having the charity of heart consistently to see no fault in a brother or sister, in another person. And so we take in this guideline, this ancient guideline from this translation, understanding that it is a call to own our message. The prince, when he receives these signs, is told further that when a person becomes lost in the error of self, when they have forgotten, quote, the heavenly birth, the state of holiness and truth, which is our true state, then they can set up artificial standards by which they judge one another. And then there is ceaseless strife and sorrow and enmity. Can you imagine this ceaseless strife, sorrow, enmity of one person divided against another is based on the fact, according to the wisdom of this text, it is based on the fact that they make the test of truth for others, the acceptance and the adherence to their own opinions, This ancient text also defines humility as the ability to let go completely of our opinions, to have no stake in our opinions, but through sacrificing, giving up our opinions to express only love to others as they become more and more invested in theirs. The worship of the self is the main block to living from truth. If we are chained to pride, to suspicion, to willfulness, to anything other than gentle, mild contentedness, when we are content to be passed by so that another might be stroked in their ego, then we are resting in a truth that is changeless. We do not have pride or condemnatory ardor. We do not worship the self, the small s self. Rather, we live in the truth. We live from the perfect heart, because truth in itself is ineffable, and truth can only be lived. Truth is charity in expression. Truth is really the only one reality in the universe. And when there is heated controversy among men, when there is foolish defending of opinions, then people become followers of the self and take arms against others, as opposed to being followers of truth, and if anything, take arms against the small self, which is always ready to pop onto the scene. If the God of your heart is love, if the God of your heart is not the small self, then the message that comes through each one of us as the medium expressing it will be pure. It will be fearless. It will be full of humility. It will be full of fortitude and purity. We will then live from a contented heart that is completely free of the need or of any desire. We will live with a mild, modest bearing. We will not set up artificial standards any longer by which to project a judgment, a criticism, or a condemnation onto another person. When we are birthed into the truth, we allow the small self to die. That is what is meant by dying daily to the personality, dying daily to all limited conceptions and perceptions of what is right, of what is wrong, of what is pure, and of resting in the supreme lesson that truth is changeless and that we can align with it. In bringing this understanding that I am in charge of my lesson, that I'm in charge of my message. That's what I mean when I say I own my message. The consistency of it is the challenge as we show up in the world with personalities. And I would like to share this definition of truth as shared by Charles Fillmore in Talks on Truth. This is on page 174 in my edition of Talks on Truth, and it is in his chapter, Jesus Christ at One Minute. And this is what he says. Whoever takes any of the words of Jesus into his mind consecrates himself to the truth that those words represent. Truth is not the doctrine of any church. It is not the creed of any sect, not even Christianity. Truth is written in the inner sanctuary of every soul, and all who know it without the use of external formulas. Truth is the intuitive perception of what is right in the sight of God. It is the truth and justice that every person will recognize as the foundation of living the truth. Today, as a spiritual community, we recommit to living the truth. I share with you the nuances of my message and of how I seek on a daily basis to check in with how I am a pure, perfect heart, to what degree I am needing to release the self so that the perfection of truth might express through me as my message for humanity. So I leave you with those 3 steps for identifying our message at any given time. The 3 steps for armoring ourselves in changeless truth, clothing ourselves in divine love so that we might cultivate a realization of pure truth and shut out all that is not in harmony with love. When we renunciate error of all kinds, including judgment, criticism, opinionated behaviors, self will disappear into the truth. And that is when sorrow and suffering will cease. So I invite you to find words to express what your message is as a messenger of truth. Articulate what your message is, express it, and be responsible for it, for its consistency. When we do that, truly we are a medium, and ourselves as the medium become the message. We become the message that we are open, receptive channels to exude, to radiate, and to share with all who come into our energy field. Wouldn't you agree that that is a worthy undertaking, to take responsibility for the message that we are always expressing? Own the way that that message is articulated. Believe that I can be that medium for love or for whatever you're expressing. And then consistently commit to being that expression of truth. This is the truth as it has come through me. I give thanks for my voice, which was restored after I paid attention to what that was about on Thursday night. It is a joy and a privilege to move us now together into a time of introspection, of reflection, of refreshment, of communion with the Lord of our being, with the truth that beats in our hearts.